Yeah, no, I'm not going to. I'm not going to sit here in a microphone and talk about how great things and whistle past the graveyard, because that's not reality. It's like there are people that are giving you a fucking line of bullshit. When the reality is you're using a CBO score, these lefty bullshit artists talking about how you actually need to you have to pay the 2016 rate, otherwise, well, we got you exploded the deficit.
You're responsible.
On me, the government, the people who we elect us, they couldn't spend responsibly, so it's your fucking fault.
Yeah.
He's Donald Trump's #1 enemy in Congress, Chicago Senator Dick Durbin. And now Dick Durbin has a new scheme, a government takeover of your credit card. Today, consumers have thousands of choices in credit cards, all with equal, strong security. But Durbin's plan is less competition and less security. And that means more risk for your credit and your identity. Tell Republicans in Congress, stop Dick Durbin's takeover of your credit card before it's too late.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. Good Thursday to you all. Controversy in Washington, D.C. A lot of discussion about the big, beautiful bill and what it means to the United States Senate and whether it becomes law. Big players have weighed in. We're going to discuss all of that. I'm Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug and Michael Duncan. John Ashbrook in the vomitorium today.
Get well soon, Ashbrook. Man.
Turns out he's come down with a little bit of an illness, one that he ascribes to Michael.
He does not. You do.
Well, I think he may. He may. I mean, you're a little bit of a typhoid Mary here on the Variety Program.
I don't think that's fair. I just prefer to show up to work.
That's the thing.
To deliver the show.
Typhoid Mary.
That the viewers and the listeners depend on us for.
That much I can't actually argue with, because your last typhoid Mary experience with this Variety Program, Smug, you were there.
Yeah, so that's the thing is, he shows up to work like,
whether
this is a good thing, whether he's ready to give everyone bubonic plague or not.
Because I
always feel like if you're sick, stay home, right?
No.
And then I get attacked for it.
No. Look, dude, the reason why this show has been successful is because the listeners and the viewers can reliably depend on the fact that every Tuesday and Thursday we show up for them. And that's right. What I do.
Unless whether I have to kill one of my co-hosts with a disease or not.
Okay. All right. Well, look, all I'm saying is if I don't have a bullet wound in my vitals, I'm coming into work.
Well, you've proven that.
Yes.
We went to Las Vegas probably about
that was
2 years ago.
2 years? Yeah.
We did a big thing out in Las Vegas where we were kind of opening speakers for a whole lineup, including Trump and everybody else. And we were just setting the table. And we noticed that Michael wasn't looking well.
He was like shallow breathing. Like 100%. He should have been in the ICU.
Pale and sweating.
Yeah, but
what I remember.
Like he was ready to rage.
Yeah,
he was like, "I'm not going home. We're gonna go gamble. We're going to the casino."
Yeah, no, it's a compliment to his work ethic. He did, however, take half the cast and crew with him.
I mean, he made everyone sick.
Well,
everyone got terribly ill.
Yeah,
in my defense, I did not find out until I returned to D.C. that I, in fact, had RSV the entire time.
Yeah.
I got on an airplane and traveled across the country. I sung, I danced, I entertained.
You did all those
with
things.
RSV.
He's like, I couldn't have known. Everyone around me was shocked that I was alive while I was infecting them.
And this morning, John Ashbrook is appreciative of his efforts because he is not with us,
Ashbrook.
only because he is like on a breathing tube.
He's okay.
Ashbrook's in bad shape, man.
Look, sometimes
he's in bad shape.
Sometimes
I'm praying for you, John.
I'm going to go ahead and say sometimes Ashbrook doesn't have the courage.
Oh, wow. That is a direct
It's a direct blast. May I paint a picture for you?
Sure.
He has 3 children.
Holmes.
Ashbrook's got 3 kids, man.
I know.
He's got them this
I
sick.
can't wait to see where this goes.
I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
We played golf last weekend.
Yes.
Me and you and Ashbrook.
Yeah.
Playing great golf. Good weather.
Yeah. Perfect weather.
It's a fucking bangers on 9.
Lovely day.
Close to the pin. We both blew the birdie putts, obviously.
Yeah,
but
that's what we do.
we get around to the turn, and the grill's fired up.
Yep.
Which is a wonderful service.
Oh, I see where you're going with
A service is provided. The grill is hot.
Yeah.
They got options.
What's your special, sir?
And you're a little hungry.
Yeah, what's your special,
And you know
sir?
what the special was that day? They had a wonderful brat.
They did.
And not only was it a brat, the brat was marinated.
Yep.
It was then split.
Yep.
It was put upon the grill and then covered with peppers and onions. It was like you were at the ballpark.
It was incredible.
I ordered one.
Yeah, I did too.
Holmes, you ordered one. Ashbrook, I'll take a hot dog. He didn't have the courage to go to Flavortown. He didn't want to do it.
Which is why he finds himself in such dire straits.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You got to have the courage to go to Flavortown.
It's an interesting theory. One I could see some merits in. Well, anyway, we're going to do a show either way, and it's a banger, as Smug says, because we've got a bunch of things. There's this big discussion. You saw Elon's take on the big, beautiful bill, the tax thing. We're going to talk in some detail. Recall, I think part of the reason why you listen to this program, we've done this. We've done it. Mm-hmm. We've lived it. We know exactly what it is that they're doing. We're not pontificating about shit that we don't understand. We've done it. We literally have lived this. And so we're going to explain to you under the hood what it is that's happening now, because so much of this has been
misconstrued.
And detextualized. It seems it's either intentional or so ignorant that it's hard to actually argue with. You know what I mean? There are some things, and we always say this about just professions in life, and you all do all kinds of different things. There's really only 2 professions in all of the world that people think they can do better than the practitioners who have spent literally their entire lives trying to perfect. It is professional sports, and it is politics.
This coach doesn't know what he's doing.
Exactly. Right? Why would you run a trap? You got to run a sweep. You got to you spent you maybe coached a high school football game or so, and the guy who spent 30 years studying the defensive schemes of a West Coast, you're like, all of a sudden you know better than the guy. And I'm a fan because I do it. I do that.
We all do it.
Yeah, I do that.
No shade on anybody because it's a natural thing.
It's an observation. Politics is the other one because you're like, well, they talk, I talk. They have opinions, I have opinions.
I watch the games.
Yeah. So it's kind of in the same category. There's only 2 categories. Nobody would run up to an accountant and be like, I can do your taxes better than they can. You know what I mean?
Actually, I'm not. I think Smug might try to do that.
He might. Yes.
Might, yeah.
But he's a special category.
I might be better than them.
He's got a little.
I might know more.
There's
a chance.
There's a touch of
I know these
autist
things.
in that guy, though, because he might be right about it. He does know the numbers.
Yeah.
He does know the numbers. Anyway, we're going to break all that down. We have 2 guests, not 1, but 2, and in very different categories. Joni Ernst is with us, United States Senator. She's going to talk to us about how the Senate is receiving the big, beautiful bill. That will be considered in the next few weeks. Recall that there is a deadline, official or unofficial, that people have set by the 4th of July. That might be ambitious. She's going to give context to all of that and talk a little bit about how she's been summarily attacked for making jokes. You make jokes in this line of work, particularly when you're in cycle, and all of a sudden nobody has any humor about anything, which I find completely. It's the most inauthentic thing in the world, right? If she's not in cycle, if her election is 2028 instead of 2026, anything that she has said over the last week, nobody would have ever recognized or known or reported or whatever. But the fact that she is, all of a sudden,
we will pretend to be outraged.
Yeah, we're going to pretend to be very outraged about all of that. Anyway, she comes in to talk to us all about that, and then we've got a great guest. Listen, Talor Gooch, and many of you who listen to us, as we know, are sports fans. Talor Gooch, when you think about Talor, you're like, oh, I know that name. How do I know that? So he's a LIV golfer. He was on the PGA Tour for a number of years. he was not one of like the John Rahms or Phil Mickelsons or people who had won multiple majors, Koepka and everybody else that went to LIV. He was like just entering the peak of his career. And subsequently, he goes on to LIV and wins the whole damn thing in 2023. An inordinate amount of money, but also was the best case that LIV had to make to the golf fan world to say, like, we really ought to reunify this because you're not playing the best talent. And because PGA would come back and be like, these guys all were great in like 2015. Phil Mickelson or listen, DeChambeau is putting all that to rest.
Right.
But that was the case. They were like yesterday's news. They're a sideshow. Gooch was different. Gooch was somebody who he won one tournament as a PGA Tour pro, and then entered this prime of his career as a LIV pro where he was dominating the competition. Still is. He had top 10 last year. He's still playing. He's in town in Northern Virginia playing a LIV Tour event today. And so he stopped by the program. He's played some golf with Trump. Likes him. He's going to give us a bunch of different stuff that, like, I love hanging out with the guy.
I love hanging out with the guy. And I also loved his answer on, who do you like to play golf with when it's not serious?
Yeah.
And he gives some great color. I won't spoil it. You want to stick around for that.
100%. We got a lightning round where we cover a whole bunch of other things that you're going to show up in the news later on today after everybody cribs the Ruthless Variety program for content.
As they do.
Which is the way
that's
the way the news media works.
We're the tip of the spear.
But we're going to make them listen to the whole thing in order to get it so they can prepackage after 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Anyway, the big, beautiful bill. So it starts with Elon. Of course, an ally above all allies to President Trump during the 2024 campaign. Not only spent a lot of money, but was like...
he risked a lot, personally.
He was just the ultimate... how do you say it? Like somebody who just like set their own personal situation aside, knowing you were going to take the heat.
Our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honors.
Yeah.
Dude, seriously,
think about it.
That's a great way to put it.
This guy had a lot to lose. And we shouldn't, just brush that aside.
Can't minimize it.
You can't minimize this. This guy had, multiple companies, and he had a lot of people shooting at him, and he did the most difficult thing possible.
Yeah, he decided to be partisan. And there's a reason why the whole Michael Jordan quote about Republicans buy sneakers too applies to the corporate world, in that anybody with any skin to gain, like in a publicly traded company, avoids partisan politics because they don't want to, basically alienate a customer base. He decided, I'm walking away from all that. This is what I believe. I'm all in. And he threw caution to the wind on a whole bunch of stuff. Took up Doge, did all these things. I still maintain that buying Twitter and converting it to X was amongst the most patriotic things that I've ever seen anyone do. And I mean that sincerely. I really do believe that. So I've got a lot of reverence for Elon. We disagree with him on some stuff, though. And what happened towards the end of his tenure as a special employee at the White House was that he was gone, and then all of a sudden he's got a problem with the signature Trump bill, which is the big, beautiful bill. It's the cornerstone of the economic agenda. Everybody's trying to make, all these discussions about tariffs, about deals with other countries. Like, those are all parts of it. But the signature, the cornerstone of the American economic future, is Congress's ability to get President Trump's vision that he articulated in 2024 through Congress with very narrow majorities into law, to make tax cuts permanent, all these things. Well, Elon, now that he's out, has got a different opinion. So graphic one, if we can toss that up. He says, I'm sorry, I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. Okay. I'm going to set aside commentary on that, but that was the opening salvo. Let's go to graphic 2. Interest payments already consume 25% of all government revenue. If the massive deficit spending continues, there will only be money for interest payments and nothing else. No Social Security, no medical, no defense, nothing.
Which, can I stop you there? Because what I find interesting about it is, if you listen to the show, you watch this show, we've been talking about this for a very long time.
We talked about it during the campaign.
We talked about it during the campaign. We talked about you could shut down the entire government. You could shut it all down, right? And keep funding Medicaid and Social Security and all the, entitlement programs. And you couldn't balance the budget for 30 years.
America's freight railroads invest $23 billion of their own capital, not taxpayer money, to maintain the world's most productive freight network. That massive scale is key. It enables railroads to move goods with unmatched efficiency, driving down costs for American businesses and consumers. From energy and agriculture to retail and automotive, freight rail serves every corner of the real economy, and it's essential to America's reindustrialization. Put simply, manufacturing depends on rail. Freight rail is America's engine, built on private investment, driving the nation forward. Learn more at aar.org.
Hardworking Americans know when it's time to roll up our sleeves and get the job done. Now is the time to unleash our nation's energy to create jobs, secure our future, and make life better, more affordable, and full of opportunity for all Americans. That's the power of America's oil and natural gas. Learn more at lightsonenergy.org. Paid for by the American Petroleum Institute.
You could take every penny the Congress votes on, every penny, every road, every bridge, every education component, every healthcare component, all of these things. You could shut it down zero, right to zero tomorrow. And assuming economic growth
Yeah, right.
that we all assume
Right.
from the American economy over the last 30 years, you still wouldn't balance the budget until 2036, which is what we were sort of critical about at the beginning when there was a whole bunch of false promises. And we were also critical, frankly, like the first ad out of the gate in the primary from the Trump administration was, we're going to enhance, we're never going to touch Social Security, we're going to enhance Social Security. Good politics.
Good politics.
Right? Good politics. But you can't simultaneously be a budget hawk and not look at Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, and interest on our national debt as off limits. You can't do it. Like those are mutually exclusive things because they're now 72% of our budget.
It's table stakes for saying you're serious about tackling the national debt.
Yeah. So, but like the Trump administration knew what they were doing with all of this. It wasn't like a hide the ball thing.
Not at all.
They were like, we're going to start with Doge, and they're going to find waste, fraud, and abuse, which, we're hopeful can produce billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars of savings. That much he got. And like the thing is with Elon, I think he's the most successful industrialist in our age, in large part because this is a guy who thinks outside of the box. He approaches problems differently than anybody else because he thinks outside of the box. But then his professional career, he's always brought in the smartest people of all time to help effectuate his vision. You don't land rockets on the pad unless you've got the smartest rocket scientists in the world helping you do it. It's not like Elon's screwing the deadbolts into the side of the rocket. Like, he's got people that are doing that. He did the first part right by thinking outside the box and identifying all of these things that we now know were waste, fraud, and abuse. The second part, he didn't even care to think about. Like, it was somebody else's job, right?
Like, how do you actually effectuate this into law? Like, how do you make this?
Like, how do you actually go about cutting it?
You got
right?
it, yeah.
And, like, they walked into obvious court decisions where, like, well, listen, Congress passed the funding directed to go where it goes constitutionally. You look at the Constitution, It's a
Power of the purse.
Power of the
Yep,
purse.
yep.
Like they do the thing. Like it's not a hardcore case to solve. Like this is not like we all act like we're outright. We're not really outright. I mean that's very, very simple. You can't just walk in and stop congressional spending. What you can do is identify that and then campaign to make sure
Right.
that Congress doesn't ever do that as shit again, which they missed that component of it. But what bothers me about what he's doing here when he's talking about a pork-filled congressional spending bill is that this has nothing to do with spending at all. Reconciliation, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but what it is they're dealing with taxes and entitlements. Two things, and that's the only thing you can deal with in the context of reconciliation. And the benefit of that is that you can do it with 50 votes rather than 60, meaning you don't need Democrats at all when you have Republican majorities. That's why you can get it done. They can deal with entitlements, and they can deal with taxes. Trump campaigned on not touching entitlements. Campaigned on it. I mean, literally, that was his first ad in the primary in Republican politics. We are not touching any. If anything, we're going to make it easier on people who get Social Security, Medicare. Okay, so that shit, the entitlement side is off the table. Congressional Republicans, along with like Stephen Miller, Russ Vought, and a bunch of conservatives, did some very, very smart things on the Medicaid side by saying like, okay, illegal aliens, you can't get it. If you don't work for a living as an able-bodied adult, like, let's put some work requirement, the kind of things that we used to do on a bipartisan basis in the 90s that are now an anathema to the Democratic Party.
Again, 80-20 issue.
80-20
The
issue.
American people are with us on this 100%.
Yeah. So they cobble that stuff together to save $1.5 trillion. And then they want to extend the current tax rates. The tax rate that you see, that you just paid 2 months ago, they want to extend that number. Because if they don't extend that number, it's going to go up roughly $3.5 trillion, meaning on average, $3,500 to $5,500 per person who's listening to this. Your tax rates are going to go up. And of course, the Congressional Budget Office, which is the absolute worst.
Yuck, gross.
They have no dynamic scoring of this whatsoever. They see it as a static, like you lower rates and money goes away type thing, despite the fact that over the last 50 years, every time you lower taxes, you get economic growth that actually produces more revenue to the federal government than you did at the higher rate.
Yeah, look at the revenue for TCJA in 2019.
They don't want to look at the math.
No, that's an inconvenient number for them.
So they provide a deficit number. And for decades, this was a Republican and Democratic argument where Republicans were like, yeah, but you're just a dumb F. Like, you don't understand how this works, because if you look every single time, the economic growth associated with tax cuts, more people, more investment, more money in your pocket, more consumer spending, all of those things creates a larger economy that we can then go forward with and create more revenue. And they're like, yeah, we don't want to hear it. It was a Republican versus Democratic argument. Well, now you've got some libertarians out there. Rand Paul was probably number one. You heard Thomas Massey, the one House Republican who voted against it, who were like, this is deficit spending. They're saying that you're let me just start with, the problem is multifold. One is, there is an assumption that something dealing with the rates of taxes that you pay is already assumed to the federal government.
It's such an arrogant thing.
It's a horrible way to look at it.
And it's like, it's especially arrogant coming from people who consider themselves libertarians.
That's the thing.
That you would presume that keeping the tax rates of Americans the same is somehow a deficit buster.
I mean,
fix the government spending problem, dude. What are you talking about?
And they talk about, I'll give Rand some credit on this, and that he's got the political wherewithal to say, like, I would do something about Medicare, Social Security.
I'm sure he would.
You know what I mean?
I don't doubt it for a second.
He doesn't avoid that conversation.
Of course.
But the vast majority of people who find themselves in the, like, deficit conscious part of this discussion who are concerned about the price tag of the big, beautiful bill are people who hid underneath the we need to do something about spending, never did anything, and then look at what you're paying as what the price tag ultimately is. So it's an assumption that you are already paying the bracket that you were paying in 2016, which is 3 to 5 points higher than you paid last year.
We have a deficit because you, taxpayer, are stealing from the government.
That's it.
It's unreal.
That's it. That's the thing. And if that is your point of view, let me just suggest you're not a Republican.
Join the Democratic Party.
Join it. Get out. Like, you're not a conservative at all. If you're concerned about our deficit, let's have a wholesale discussion about chain CPI, age adjustments, any kind of evaluation on growth of Social Security and Medicare when it comes to income
Means testing.
values, like a means test. Oh, let's have a conversation about that, because if you're concerned about it, that's the conversation that you need to have.
To consider like the government taking your money is like, this is just the baseline. Like, why would you dare touch that? Is insane.
That's
insane.
But it's even more insidious and even worse than that. It's not the rates that you're currently paying. It's a higher rate. They're assuming a higher rate. They're assuming 3 to 5 points on the taxpayers above that as the baseline, and anything that means that you were paying the same taxes that you paid last year counts in their mind as a deficit.
The CBO is like, hey, we got to pass the hat because we can't cut any of the spending. And you're just being a cheapskate, Mr. Taxpayer.
Yeah.
You're getting a good deal.
Yeah.
That's why we have a deficit, because you're stingy.
Yeah.
I mean, think
That's
about
insane.
that for a second.
That is such an insane way to think.
Yeah.
And it gets worse when you couple in Doge and you find out all the waste, fraud, and abuse that's been going on. But it's a separate process. It's an appropriations process. It, by law, can't be in a reconciliation bill. Now, I understand why people are confused by this. And there could have been a messaging issue with that. That, like, honestly, I get it. Like, you thought the big, beautiful bill. Well, you may have thought that, like, all that shit was in there.
And we talked about this on a previous episode when I was like, I think they kind of dropped the ball a little bit with the how they messaged the Doge stuff and then went to the reconciliation bill without trying to figure out a way to publicize, like, we're going to try to make this stuff statutory on the Doge cuts.
Yes.
And we're going to hear from Joni Ernst about some of that. So, like, also do not miss that interview because it's fascinating on that side of it. But, like, I think that elevated the confusion of people. Is like, you can't spend the first 100 days talking about all this terrible, wasteful spending of the government and then be like, you know what? Keeping the rates is actually going to increase the deficit.
Well, and they want it both ways. They want it both ways.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
They want to say that you not paying a higher rate is what contributes to the deficit, but then they're like, oh, but we ought to do a whole bunch of things that we probably won't do to reduce it. So it's like vote no on either one, and like I am the hardcore guy here, And it's so anyway. Listen, Stephen Miller, I want to single him out in particular, and we're going to get to this after the break. This guy has been doing yeoman's work at explaining the process. We don't expect you as a listener who's interested in this and interested in your tax rates and interested in politics in general to be an expert in parliamentary process. We spent 20 years doing this, which is why we know a little bit about it. Don't expect you to know it. But I do have a problem when people who know they don't know try to explain to you like it's simpler than you all think, that it's all the same thing. It's a deliberate misconstruing of a situation that the Trump administration is trying to get their arms around, and all these members of Congress are trying to do. Stephen does a great job. We're going to get into everything he has to say right after this.
America is built on hard work and powered by American energy. Chevron has spent $44 billion with local businesses across all 50 states since 2022, fueling infrastructure and communities, all while strengthening local economies. Last year, Chevron increased U.S. production nearly 20%, powering communities and businesses. From the heartlands to the coasts, we're helping to fuel America's energy advantage, building a brighter future right here at home. Visit chevron.com/America to discover more.
Okay, so we talked about how Stephen Miller is trying to explain this to everybody. I understand everybody's not on X, and it's certainly not going to be included in the legacy media. They don't give a damn about any of that. I mean, they just don't care.
Well, why would they? Because all they want to do is have a chyron on MSNBC talking about Republican infighting.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, it's that, and then they go back to the Congressional Budget Office, which anybody who does this for a living knows since the beginning of time that you actually can't cut taxes with a number from the Congressional Budget Office because it doesn't reflect reality. Like
Right.
it doesn't. It's been 30 years of demonstrated falsehoods, and yet they just keep coming back to it. But they all run with those two.
It's an incredible cottage industry.
It's unbelievable. But anyway, here's Miller's tweet. Let's toss up graphic 3. One of the bigger points of confusion on the BBB is spending versus tax cuts. The lefty CBO says extending 2017 tax cuts, preventing their expiration, which is right. I'm glad that he specified that, increases the deficit. Some critics have seen this figure and claimed or implied the bill increases spending. Okay, all right, let's stop right there. That's one component that you need to understand. When they say this increases spending, or when Elon Musk calls it a spending bill full of pork, as he said, what they're talking about, the pork and the spending, is the gulf between the tax rate that you paid last year and the higher tax rate they're suggesting that you pay next year. It has nothing to do with USAID, with the nonsense things that Doge was talking.
The bullshit to the NGOs. None of that is relevant to this discussion.
None of that is in. It is simply the gulf between the tax rate that you just paid on April 15th and the tax rate that they would like you to pay, which is 3 to 5 points higher than that.
Right.
That's it. When they say spending, that's what it is.
It's nuts that people have gotten this confused about what that is. Of that the CBO is essentially, as an entity, they believe all your money should be theirs to start with.
Yep.
Unless you're collecting every American's every penny, well, that's a deficit because there's Americans left with money that could have been sent to Congress.
Well, Smug, I would go further and say it's not a confusion. I would say
Deliberate.
It's being willfully obtuse to, quote Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, it's good.
Love that movie.
Willfully
Why are you
obtuse.
being obtuse?
Now, it is, but this is where it gets really bad. So this is Miller again. I'm quoting from Miller again. Even according to CBO, the bill cuts spending by over $1.6 trillion. So when a libertarian, Rand example, attacks the deficit impact of the bill, they're attacking just the tax cut. So what we
A
just
libertarian attacking a tax cut.
Yeah, so let's get that clear. Because there's political vulnerability on what he's talking about. The $1.6 trillion spending cut that is in this bill also provides a whole lot of liability to a whole bunch of Republicans in the middle. You've heard that show up in the context of Medicaid cuts and all these things, which we can contextualize later. But that's where the political vulnerability the Democrats are trying to seize on. What he is talking about is, again, the gulf between what you paid in taxes and what in 2016 you paid in taxes, which is 3 to 5% higher.
Right.
And they're calling it spending.
It's just absurd.
They're calling it government spending. I just want to make that clear. The money that you have, that you worked hard for, that you send Uncle Sam, when it's not higher than they'd like it to be, that's spending.
It's nuts.
I think it's important for us to level set here with the audience for a second, because we are obviously getting in the weeds on some very specific things. The reason why we're doing that is because it's more important than being a conservative podcast. It's more important than talking about the great work that the Trump administration is doing. what's most important to me and every person here on this panel is that we're honest with you.
Yep.
And that we're looking out for you and your wallet. And like that is the end of the day. It's like I'm not going to live in a world where Republicans accept that the government has an a priori right to your money. That is not a Republican Party. That is not a conservative movement.
Oh, I mean, it would be very easy for us to be like, I don't know. He said, she said.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to fucking.
He said, she said, both friends.
I'm not going to sit here in a microphone and fucking, talk about how great things and whistle past the graveyard because that's not reality. It's like there are people that are giving you a fucking line of bullshit when the reality is you're using a CBO score, these lefty bullshit artists talking about how you actually need to you have to pay the 2016 rate. Otherwise, well, we got you exploded the deficit.
You're responsible.
On me, the government, the people who we elect us, they couldn't spend responsibly, so it's your fucking fault. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah. I could have sworn we talked about not swearing.
Okay, well, whatever. I'm sorry.
We talked about.
I just got. I got
I mean,
animated.
Michael, we
I'm
talked
sorry.
about. You said, well, the algorithm doesn't appreciate that.
They
kind
don't.
of thing. And
They
you
really don't.
Scolded me for it, and here we go. There was like 3 F's.
I
and 2 S's.
got lost in it. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I'm glad we're all on the same
Lost
page
in the
now.
sauce.
Authenticity, that's what I appreciate.
Yeah.
Not the algorithm. Okay, anyway. So we'll pick this back up. So listen, he goes on to say, of course, honestly accounted for, extending the current tax rates has zero deficit impact. Of course it doesn't, because that's what the baseline is. It's the amount of money that the government assumes. The problem is the government is assuming that taxes are going to go up 3 to 5%. And if the government doesn't get those 3 to 5%, CBO says that's spending. Right? So he's explaining this to you. And then he says the second major point of confusion is what is actually in the reconciliation bill. It's not an appropriations bill, as we've discussed, or a general budget bill. It provides no funding or authorization for 99.9% of operations of government. It was written not by the appropriators, but by some of the most conservative members of the House. It is not a single Democratic provision or vote. The bill has 3 principal sections: tax cuts, welfare reform, that's the Medicaid piece, immigration and border security, because they expand the pot of which is entitled to the defense of our country when it comes to our borders and immigration. It's a dream bill, he concludes. I can't argue with that in his context.
How could you? I mean, this is a guy, Stephen Miller. This has been his life's work.
Yeah.
He is an expert at this. He knows this better than almost anyone in this town. I mean, like, you can't seriously disagree with what he said because he's describing the exact process as it exists.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you
not a fantasy of like, wouldn't it be great if we could? You know what I mean? And too much of our politics is that.
Yes.
Is like, wouldn't it be great if we could? And it's like, no, but there is a reality that we operate in. And the reason why we're doing it this way is because we don't want to ask Chuck Schumer for votes.
Yeah. And before you think we're fanboys about this, let me just tell you, this is my least favorite tax bill that we've had in the 20 years I've been doing it. Because I don't think it's all that. It's like extending current rates. If you make a living on tips, you're going to be wild about it. If you're a senior citizen who's had the benefit of the doubt for the American taxpayer footing the bill for you, from my perspective, for the best part of 40 years, you're going to love it, right? For the average, American, you're just going to be paying the same rate that you did. This is not some dramatic tax cut, but it does follow very closely along the lines of what President Trump talked about. This was his campaign promise. I knew what we were getting into. I didn't expect a massive tax cut as a result of this. He didn't promise one. He promised one to service industry workers. He promised one to senior citizens, and that was a shitload better than whatever Kamala Harris was coming back with. She was a champion of small business, despite never having a single day in a small business.
I don't know. I was told she worked at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Can't be verified.
But that is not. We're not over the moon about the tax. This is the best that you can do on the campaign promises that President Trump made. I'd love to have a flat tax, for Christ.
That's the thing, is in a dream world, I'd love it to hit 0%. Like, I'm going to be real. That's what I would have loved the bill
Hell
to be.
yes, Mug.
But the thing is that everything Stephen Miller says here is truth.
That's
the thing. And, like, I think so many folks are completely confused about what this bill is, what it does. They think it's the, like, budget bill. And that, like, with Elon's, clearly Elon doesn't understand what's in the bill. Like, very clearly when he's like, this is full of pork. No, because it's not. There's no appropriations in this.
There's nothing.
There's no.
It's literally a
Pork is like
reconciliation bill.
Pork is appropriations that you put in to get, like, essentially a congressman's vote on something. Be like, okay, let's put some government program in like New Mexico's 3rd district so we can get this guy to get on the bill. There's literally none of that because there's no appropriations going on in this bill. It's just the argument that the left has made and that people have bought into is that if you don't hand your money over to the government, that's deficit spending. It's insane.
It's one of 3 things when it comes to Elon. I'm just going to be totally honest.
Do it.
It's one of 3 things. The first, the most cynical, is this bill, you can't argue with it, zeroes out tax credits for electric vehicles. Tesla is built in large part on those tax credits, providing an economic incentive for the American people to use a deduction to buy an electric vehicle. It just was. I don't think that's it, because I watched the purchase of Twitter.
Yeah, you don't buy Twitter if you're worried about that.
I watched him put all the skin in the game in 24. I watched the personal liability that guy put himself through. I don't think he gives a shit about his bottom line. Like, I don't. I mean, maybe it plays some role in that he's getting pinched with Tesla and all kinds of different things. But I just don't think that's it. The second part is what I talked about, in that he actually just doesn't understand government. He did the first part of what he does so well. In the second part, he just didn't understand or come to a complete understanding of how you go about effectuating his vision on shrinking government and eliminating waste. That seems plausible. The third is there's something else going on here. And I don't know what that could be. I don't want to speculate too hard, but there is a story. There's a story that showed up that we got to tell you about, because it may have some impact on some of this stuff. Steve Bannon, the War Room, everybody knows Steve Bannon. He says that Elon Musk and Scott Bessent had a physical confrontation. This is according to Newsweek. Elon Musk allegedly got into a heated discussion with a senior White House official that turned physical during his time as the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, according to Steve Bannon, a former chief strategist of President Donald Trump in his first term in office. Bannon told the Daily Mail that Musk's turbulent time at the White House took a dramatic turn when he allegedly shoved 62-year-old Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent during a heated exchange. According to Bannon, Bessent confronted Musk over his sweeping but unfulfilled promises to deliver $1 trillion of budget cuts. Scott Bessent called him out and said, "You promised us $1 trillion in cuts, and now you're at like $100 billion. Nobody can find any savings. What are you doing?" According to Bannon. Okay. And that's when Elon got physical, according to Bannon. It's a sore subject with him, Bannon said. It wasn't an argument. It was a physical confrontation. And Elon basically shoved him. According to Bannon, the clash occurred as Musk and Bessent moved from the Oval Office to outside the Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles' office, and then past the office of then National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Trump 100% sided with Bessent after the clash, Bannon added. "I don't think Bessent has any bad blood, but he's got a job to do, and he is going to do it." According to Bannon.
Okay.
So that's...
Bannon's plugged in, I'll say that, man.
Okay,
like, Bannon is plugged in.
He's plugged in.
Bannon is plugged in. Okay. Yes. However, I would say he's had the knives out for Elon from day one.
Has.
He might be an unreliable narrator when it comes to this sort of thing.
Or,
I don't know.
Or a lot.
I don't know.
Or like I would think if this was complete, this is me, just, what I do best. Just asking questions. But like, if it didn't happen, wouldn't someone immediately come out and be like, "That didn't happen"? Actually, of course that didn't happen.
You would have seen more commentary, I think. But I don't know. I mean, again, maybe you just want it to go away and it's Newsweek. It's basically like a clickbait publication that doesn't have any real weight.
Right.
You just kind of make it go away. And I don't know. I mean, listen, to be clear, we didn't inquire with the White House press office about this.
Well, okay, so here's my take on it. I mean, like, Bessent could be right, 100%. But if he really thought that he was going to get to $1 trillion of cuts, then he was setting up Elon Musk for failure. Because what Elon Musk was looking at was...
No, Elon's the one that said $1 trillion in cuts.
Okay, fine.
It wasn't Bessent.
That's the thing. So,
Okay,
like,
fine,
yeah,
fine.
I saw real quick, just like someone did a Grok fact check, which I love Grok for being able to do this. Of like, what amount did Elon promise? And I think he initially gone for. He said on the campaign trail he would love to see like $2 trillion in cuts. Then Elon said, "I'd love to see $1 trillion in cuts if we can get there." And then he moved it to the more reasonable. The goal became like 150 billion.
Okay, I get all that. Here's what I would say in Elon's defense. Is like, if you're not somebody who's worked in politics, you look at the government, you look at the spending, and you think all things are the same thing, and I can look and find, ways to cut across all of these things. But like when your remit becomes fucking USAID and all of these programs, it becomes a very small part of the pie.
But again, this is why you listen to the Ruthless Friday program, because back in the primary of the Republican Party during the 24 election, we had an episode where we were extremely critical about multiple ads from Republican candidates
right.
saying we will never change anything about Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, or interest in our national debt. Like, they basically just communicated to the American people. Now, politics-wise, was that smart? Sure. But it boxes you into a situation that you're describing right now.
Look, dude, I think Elon approached this like most grassroots conservatives did. And they're like, I don't understand what the process of this is. All I know is there's a lot of waste that is here in this government that we can cut out of it. And he wasn't thinking about reconciliation bills and what can fit in them, or like what's discretionary versus what's mandatory spending. And he's like, I think I can cut this much out of the government. But like when you also have your sails kind of trimmed by the fact that like you're locked into that thing, like you said, Holmes, it's an impossible task. You can't look around to the discretionary budget for waste, fraud, and abuse and be like, we're going to balance the budget. That's not a realistic thing to do.
It's all just understanding the significance of the task that you're undertaking. I mean, there was like, I don't have the numbers, so I'm paraphrasing. These are definitely wrong, but like it's a million seconds ago was like last Wednesday, and 10 million was like a month ago, and 100 million was like 6 months ago, and a billion was 20 years ago, and $1 trillion was like before the birth of Christ.
Yeah, right.
So, like, understanding what you're dealing with when 73% of the American budget is on autopilot in that Medicare and Social Security and interest on the national debt category. When you take that off the table and pretend like you're going to balance the budget, it's a dishonest conversation.
It is.
It's a dishonest conversation. And for you that are listening, like, look, it's really easy to be like, yay. Government is spent so much money on dumb shit. And they do. And they should root all of that out. And I think Doge exposed an awful lot of it. But if you're actually talking about balanced budgets, it's the only conversation you can have. Because you can shut down the government tomorrow. Turn the lights off. Not spend another dime. Have every member of your Congress go home for the next 15 years. And you're not going to balance the budget. Think about that.
But nature would begin healing.
But I mean, so like that's the honest conversation,
right? But people don't want to have it.
They don't want to have it.
That's the difficult thing about politics. It's this conundrum we find ourselves in. Is like the actual solution to the thing is politically difficult to do, and nobody does it.
Nobody wants. Even the people who are most adept and take the most risk. Somebody like Elon Musk
can't even get there.
Can't get there. That tells you how disgusting this whole situation is that we've gotten ourselves into. Anyway, the question is, how does this end? especially with the Elon and Trump thing. Like, he's not working in the government. Obviously, the president's biggest supporter. They're good friends. He's enmeshed in so much of the identity of this administration. But he's now, like, drawn a heavy line against the signature, the cornerstone of the Trump agenda. How does it end?
Great question. That's a great question.
Like, what happens here? Is it a divorce? Is it like people come to their senses? We have the conversation that you just heard. Because if you had that conversation, it feels like you can get to the right place.
Yeah.
But I don't know. When we come back, your comments from last episode on what can Trump do to stop the Middle Eastern terrorism from coming to the United States of America. Particularly proud of that episode. I think we did a really good job of breaking down just how corrupt the media is. We're going to get to all of it right after this.
America is built on hard work and powered by American energy. Chevron has spent $44 billion with local businesses across all 50 states since 2022, fueling infrastructure and communities, all while strengthening local economies. Last year, Chevron increased U.S. production nearly 20%, powering communities and businesses. From the heartlands to the coasts, we're helping to fuel America's energy advantage, building a brighter future right here at home. Visit chevron.com/America to discover more.
Okay, well, we usually start with a voice, but he's probably hugging the porcelain as we speak.
Poor guy.
I'll try to fill in the best I can.
Okay.
I mean, you made him sick. You might as well, right?
This is from David Henderson.
Made him sick. You might as well fill in. Yeah, a little typhoid Mary down here.
It's not true. I'm not going to do I'm not going to do a HIPAA violation and explain why it's not true because I have respect for my co-host who's not here, even though I trolled him in the opening segment. Anyway,
what do you think, Smith?
David,
He gave it to him, dude. He 100% made him sick.
David Henderson writes, Trump has done what he can do. It's time for Congress to act and codify into law Trump's EOs on this topic. Love the show, guys. I never miss it. Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. Are the greatest 6 words in podcasting, bar none.
Thanks, David.
They are.
That's awesome.
Fantastic, and an homage to our man Smash as he is staring down the porcelain
The
goddess.
And we were going to have a King of the Hill until Duncan made him sick.
I know we had a good
Everyone
one,
could
too.
have It would have been a great one.
I would have banged out, too, because I had
Poor
like,
Ashbrook.
money stuff.
Poor Ashbrook.
All right, what do we got?
Comment 2 comes from Rat Boyd, and they write, Trump could impose a travel ban on a list of countries and would get a news replay from 2017. Journals probably wouldn't even update the graphic. That's good. That's good.
So good. I love that. Comment 3 comes from Zach Gutman. Has any country successfully fought off a communist revolution? Whatever that takes is what Trump needs to do. Mm-hmm. But I have little faith he'll be able to do it with the media, the universities, and a lot of our court systems fully committed. Let me give you a little hope, Zach. We did it here. We did it here. Don't think they haven't tried. They've tried each and every time they've gotten their hands on power. And one of the things that I'm most proud about in my entire career being associated with were the 8 years that we served in a minority capacity under Barack Obama. Because they tried every day.
They tried.
They tried every day.
Everybody forgets that everything that you're seeing today from the left, the seed was planted by Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Yep.
100%.
Yep. But it has taken the vigilance. And it's why we spent so much time on the front end trying to get the shit right with our own people about what it is that you're hearing and like making sure we're all on the same page about it. Because you can't beat these people if half of your people are using their talking points.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean?
Don't be divided.
Like if you think that your tax dollar is reckless government spending, like if you think that the gulf between the tax rate you paid this year and what you paid in 16 is a government spending activity, you've missed it.
You've missed it.
You've missed it. You've missed what it takes to be a conservative. That's what communists do. They try to confuse.
You're stealing from the government.
Yeah, you're stealing from the government. It's all of our collective thing. We've just yet to determine how much it is that you owe.
Yeah.
Right? And depending upon how you could look at it as successful, or you could look at it as a threat to the government that we pose and the decisions that we make for you, we reserve the right to do more.
We'll decide who deserves things.
Yes. That, Zach, is what the communists have in mind, but we've had a lot of success. So has there been a country? It's us.
Only us.
Just got to continue. So we got to go right into an interview. Joni's going to give us context on this. With that, Joni Ernst. Well, we wanted to give you a little bit more flavor for the big, beautiful bill as it goes into the Senate. And we thought, who else but to talk about something than somebody who is taken that right on the chin and come back fighting to try to explain all of this to everybody, giving you a little insight into what the Senate is about to do, Joni Ernst. Senator, how are you?
Oh, great. It's good to be with you. It's always nice to be with the fellas.
Always nice. I think she probably needs a jacket. We talked about procuring jackets for people who appear on the program 4 or more times. I feel like you're now
like an Augusta jacket.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think we needed Wolf, let's get on that.
Thank you.
We'll get to stitching.
Thank you.
Listen, you've been a part of a lot of really contentious debates over the years, always with a thoughtful touch, representing your constituency, trying to see the impact of everything. But when you get into tax debates with Democrats, it's insane, right? I mean, they've totally misconstrue everything that is a part of a package. Obviously, that's what's happening now. How do you see, just at the onset, before this thing sort of gets into the meat of votes and all of that, like where do you think the big, beautiful bill is in the United States Senate?
Well, in the United States Senate, we are currently drawing up our own provisions that will go forward into the big, beautiful bill that President Trump wants. And it's going to be a good process, a thoughtful process as we move through this. And even before the bill text ever came out from the House, we heard a lot of screaming and wailing out across the United States with people not even understanding what was going to be in the bill or how it would end up in the Senate, and then what form it would take once the Senate got done with it. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but there's a lot of teeth gnashing and hand wringing going on over this. But truly what we are trying to do, one, we want to extend or make permanent the tax cuts of 2017 through the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Which I put my communicator hat on, and this is like the leadership role that I used to have in a comms capacity. We keep talking about this and tax cuts. Yeah, no, there's tax cuts in here for sure. But so much of this is about keeping everyone's tax rate exactly where it's at. If you don't do something, it's going up dramatically.
Dramatically. What we would look at would be a $4.3 trillion tax increase on the American people if we do not extend these tax cuts, if we do not make some of these permanent. One thing as well, we've had conversations, and as we look at modeling on the impact of not doing this bill, we could see a 4% drop in GDP across the United States, setting us up for a very, very serious recession.
And that's the thing that the bean counters over at the Congressional Budget Office have never understood. I mean, I've been a part of now more than I want to admit, but at least 4 different efforts to try to cut taxes. And they always come back with the same thing. We've been talking about this a lot lately, where CBO is like, it's always a static look. Well, they've cut taxes so that revenue comes out, and so you're going to have this much revenue. It is absolutely no bearing on what the economy does as a result of it. I mean, I think we saw...
Yeah, in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, they predicted we would lose $1.5 trillion in revenue as a result
How'd we do?
They were off by $1.5 trillion. as it turns out. You know,
And you had COVID in between.
yeah, COVID in between. And I mean, you could just look at like the revenue number that came up in the year after and see that they were wrong. But they seem to always get it wrong. And part of it is they can't, like you were saying, they don't look dynamically at what the economy is going to do as a result of, you know, businesses and people finally having some predictability of what the rate is going to be for the foreseeable future. Like businesses don't plan 1 year in advance, they plan 10 years in advance.
And you look at this from the
Absolutely.
standpoint of Iowa, right? I mean, can we miss the people of Iowa, by the way? It's been like an hour. And
They are so good.
I know.
It's been over a year since we've seen the good people of Iowa.
And
You
she's hosted us around.
Yes.
At
You were
some state
great out
fairs.
there.
You need to come on back
I
because
know.
we've got the state fair. I've got my roast and ride
Yep.
coming up in October. Lots of opportunities, folks.
Okay, all right. We'll take it under advisement. But I mean, the way that, and we've known you for a long time now, and the way that you look at it is, all right, what impact did this have on Iowans? Iowa farmers, you know, people who are just trying to make a living, whether they're in the no tax on tips situation with people
Right.
who are, you know, waiting on tables and things like that. And you look at that versus what it is that people are trying to do to stop this. I mean, it's a dramatic difference.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing from the left is, again, a lot of fear mongering, and they're not thinking about the people that are impacted by not enacting this legislation. Like you mentioned, tax on tips. I mean, that's pretty significant. No tax on Social Security. Oh my gosh, let's please help
That
our
can't be true.
older
Senator, I was told
folks.
this is a giveaway to the rich.
Well, that's what I was told reliably. It's just for the rich.
Yeah.
You know, I think about my mom and my dad, and I think a lot of folks do tend to forget that senators are actually human beings too.
Well, you in particular.
And that, you know,
You in
it's like
particular, I
that,
feel like.
you know, I still live in my hometown
Yeah.
in Red Oak. I don't live in a big fancy city. I live 8 miles from where I grew up on the farm.
Yeah.
My neighbors are impacted by the very legislation that we are working on. And all of us do take that into consideration. I think about the reference prices, which are prices that are set by the federal government, reference prices for our farmers. When it comes to, say, natural disasters or times of drought, you know, what prices do you use when you're trying to compensate farmers? Those reference prices haven't been updated since 2014. Things have changed significantly for our farmers since 2014. And in the 2014 Farm Bill, it was data that was from 2012. So we're updating reference prices in the reconciliation bill. That's a huge deal, not just in Iowa for our farmers, but all across the United States. So things like that, the no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. Of course, we want to strengthen Medicaid, which we think is really important. My staff, and just going back and looking at the situation, there were over $543 billion with a B mispayments made through Medicaid for people that were not eligible just over the last 10 years, $500 billion. So
Oh, it's
we
incredible.
have to get that right.
It's always been a conversation about waste, fraud, abuse, illegal immigration. It's never been about a cut to Medicaid.
No.
And I know, like, look, you nobody can take a joke these days.
Nobody can
right?
take a joke.
So, like, you make a joke, and all of a sudden you're the person who is, oh, you want to defund and kill people. But like the very premise of the attacks that you've undergone is the idea that you just have to like separate your mind from what this bill does from just some political talking point that Democrats are going to have about anything. In terms of Medicaid, I don't think this is, I mean, look, if it was up to me, I'd do a hell of a lot more if I had just like a magic wand in terms of reforming that system. You've seen places like California with Medi-Cal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically the backstop to bloated budgets that they have in that state.
absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse there. But this is kind of a scalpel to make sure that people who are on Medicaid can actually receive it.
Right. And at the town hall that I had the other day, There was a really, really good story that was shared by one of the members of the audience that was a great example. It was a young mother of 4.
Yeah.
Her husband is working. She is working, but they are part of our working poor.
Yep.
And they need Medicaid.
It's literally designed to help.
And they shouldn't get the short shrift because people are abusing the system.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's what I shared with her. I said, that is a really incredible story. And you are exactly the people that we want to protect on Medicaid. This is admirable that they're working.
Exactly. The demonization of politics, it never gets to that story. We have a ton of listeners who, we did a whole segment on this whole thing, and they got back to us, hey, there was a portion of my life where I was a single mother or single father, and I was trying to deal with all this, and I had to have some supplement to make sure that my kids were fed. And that's what I kept coming back to is you got to know these people. If you know Joni Ernst, she's not interested in doing anything but making sure that you can get to the place that you're at with ensuring that you're taken care of and you have the capability of rising out of it and going,
absolutely,
becoming a more productive piece of this economy. That's the whole goal of this bill.
So, yeah, I think the demonization that is out there, and hey, I've got broad shoulders. I can take it.
Yeah, you've done it a lot over the years.
But what a lot of folks don't remember is that just 10 years ago, when I shared my personal story about wearing bread bags over my shoes when I was a kid,
I remember it well.
Because we only had one pair of shoes. My mother went to extreme lengths to make sure that we were always neat and tidy going to school. I wore homemade clothes that my mother made. My mother canned. We had a huge garden. So I came from a family that probably would fall within those poverty ranges today.
Yeah.
But we were a very proud family. My family worked really hard. Today, I'm a United States Senator, but I still live in my home community.
Yeah.
I still go to church with the same people I grew up with. I can't say that of a lot of these Democratic members on the other side that went to private schools and really fancy colleges.
Yeah.
The dress I'm wearing today came from Goodwill in Council Bluffs. So I'm serious. I still know my roots, where I came from.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that people fall on hard times. But what we are trying to do is help them up out of those hard times. And so for the left to be out there in their fancy suit jackets and just berating everyone for trying to help people do a little bit better, and as you said, protect what we have so that it goes a little bit farther for those families that truly do need it.
Right.
That is really, really important.
Yeah, and it starts with being a good custodian of the people's money. I think as we get into CBO scores, and you've seen this construed even on our own side, misconstrued as this is a spending bill.
Yeah.
We're spending. No, it's about taxes and entitlements, and you can make reforms to make these entitlements stronger, as we've discussed. But ultimately, this is the people's money. And what we're talking about is taking by doing nothing, taking more of it away from the American people, or allowing them to keep, virtually the same amount they've got more, or in special circumstances, they get a lot, you get no tax on tips and that kind of thing. But that ideology is what made most of us Republicans, is you understand that federal government's working for the people. It's not. We're not just taking your stuff and telling you, we can do it better than you can. And as this debate has progressed, and you've seen the Elon Musk comments where he's talking about this bill in a way that it's a big spending bill, it's not doing all kinds of things, and he's frustrated about the Doge cuts. You've talked about the Doge cuts, but it's a separate process.
It is. And what we are hoping in the Senate as well is that we can find other cuts. We can make the bill better, because there is, believe me, I've been doing this for over 10 years now with my squeal awards and my squeal work. We've got a long ways to go to get things a lot better. And it's fraud.
That's a throwback to the first.
Make them squeal.
Make them squeal.
First ad.
I love it.
But we can do much better. And so I share Elon's frustrations, and I've worked with him on Doge. And so we can do better in the Senate, but it is a separate process when it comes to the discretionary spending portion of our budget. That will be done through a rescissions package. And we have the first one that's gone to the House already from the president and director vote over at the Office of Management and Budget. So we're starting with a very small $9 billion package that we can rescind, get rid of that spending, but there's a lot more to go.
Yeah.
And we can do that. So you won't see all of the savings in the reconciliation package, but for the American people, we will continue working on this because a lot of what is being rescinded is money that, as a federal government, we really shouldn't be spending. We really shouldn't be spending.
How frustrating, though, is it for you to see it conflated, where we're talking about very real cuts that Doge identified, Elon identified, and his team, with the idea that they'll take a CBO score and they'll be like, well, it's $4 or $5 trillion deficits as a result of this. Yeah. Like, very clearly what that is you paying the tax rate that you're currently paying. They're scoring that as a $4 trillion loss. And as we've seen over 2 decades, the economic growth overwhelms all of that. It's got to be frustrating sitting in your seat, knowing all that, and also knowing how difficult it is to explain all of that when Democrats are making this argument that somehow they're budget hawks.
Oh, my
Right?
gosh. A little bit of a throwback. Sorry, I go back to the Iowa State Senate when one of my first days there, I had a Democratic senator, behind the chambers. He laughed at me and he was like, ha, 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 Joni, I love being a Democrat. I never have to tell anybody no.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally said that to me. And
Yeah.
I see the same thing here in Washington, D.C. The Democrats never say no.
Yeah.
You see a big, good spending bill, man, they're all about it. Put
Yeah.
more in there. And now all of a sudden, they want to be these fiscal hawks. Well, actually, we're the ones being the hawks, going through Doge and finding the savings, the fraud, waste, and abuse.
It's never
in the
popular
federal
to find the
government.
fraud and abuse
Oh,
because
no.
everybody's got an excuse for it.
Oh, my gosh.
And somebody has to be the
absolutely.
adult in the room, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the brand of the Republican Party
That's it.
is. And if we
That's
ever
it.
lose that, then we're going to lose what we've
100%.
gained.
That's it.
And we can't be afraid to have this fight. Like, we have
Agreed.
to do it, even if it's difficult. It's always easier to tell everybody yes to everything that they want. But then we're going to lose our way in all this stuff.
Yeah.
No question about it. Well, listen, big heart. We know where you came
Thank
from.
you. I
We've watched
appreciate
that
it.
all the way through your
Thank you.
entire career. Happy to say I was there at the beginning of
Yes,
your federal
very
career, at least.
beginning.
And you've always been a good friend of the program. I know you're looking at this the right way. Thanks for your good work, and let's hope we get it done.
Yeah, I hope so too. And in the end, we will have a strong bill that protects the most vulnerable in our population, making sure that they do have access to medical care, making sure that those hardworking entrepreneurs and small business owners, are still receiving the tax opportunities that they should. I mean, this is all about making America stronger again, and I think we're well on our way.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you so much. Joni Ernst, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Thanks to Senator Joni Ernst for coming in. She puts a lot of that in context. I do find it completely hilarious that if you're in cycle, you can't joke about anything.
No.
And like she makes an offhand, we didn't talk about it in the interview, but she made an offhand comment about like everybody's going to die.
Yeah, to a bunch of like left-wing activists who are like, if you end net neutrality, we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
If you pass TCJA, we're all gonna die.
They've said it about everything that Republicans have ever tried to
Yeah,
do, and
right.
she tried to make light of it, and she was like, see, she wants people on Medicaid
Oh,
to
she
die.
wants people to die.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely somebody who grew up like amongst the poorest of all of the United
Right.
States senators is the one who wants to make poor people die. Not the case, and I think she acquitted herself quite well in explaining what it is that they're trying to do. I just think that people like that are going to figure it out in the United States. And I think this is all noise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Thune, the leadership team, you're all going to get together at some point and disabuse this nonsense about your tax dollars equal spending from the government. And I think you're going to get there. Anyway, thanks to her for coming in. We always appreciate it. We got a lightning round of stuff that we got to cover.
Yes.
This one caught my eye. Incredible stuff. It's a flashback to the Tuesday episode where we were talking about the Boulder, Colorado situation. USA Today had a take. Were they interested in, I don't know, the victims?
No, maybe explaining the motives of the terrorist?
Yeah, were they talking about the political culture that gave rise and radicalized somebody in their midst?
I hope so.
Spoiler alert, they didn't.
No, they write, headline, Boulder suspect's daughter dreamed of studying medicine. Now she faces deportation.
In these trying times, we must think of the terrorist families.
I mean, so
what about the other bin Ladens?
This is like, how do you look yourself in the mirror if this is your kind of thinking?
How about elderly Jews dreamed of not being set on fire?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, right. No, not an important story to tell.
Their hatred of like Trump and the like cooked-in anti-Semitism among the left, which ostensibly also clearly extends to the media, is so great and has rotted their brains and their souls to the point of they're like, Trump's deporting an illegal terrorist. I have to side with the illegal terrorist. I'm like, what?
So true. The guy is like 72 hours removed from Molotov cocktailing innocent seniors. And they're like, will somebody think of their family?
She wanted to be a doctor.
She wanted to be a doctor.
Just like Ayman al-Zawahiri.
A mostly peaceful claim.
Mostly peaceful.
So good. Oh, my God. All right, our second story. This one's going to raise alarms. Guys, this is the kind... Every once in a while, there's a story where you're like, whoa, we got a lot of threats here.
Me and Ashbrook were actually getting ready to do our hit on Jesse when this hit, like, breaking news headlines. He broke the show, and he said this right before we went on. I was like, that sounds very bad.
This sounds very bad. So, all right, so FoxNews.com broke the story. Patel sounds alarm. He's talking about the FBI drive. Sounds alarm as Chinese nationals charged with smuggling agro-terrorism agent into the United States. Quote-unquote direct threat. So let me describe that for a minute. Chinese researchers... Surprise.
Racist.
Oh, my God.
Why are you attacking the Chinese?
The board.
It's back. Ashbrook's gone and the board is active.
I mean, remember when they told us that saying that Chinese lab is where COVID came from was racist?
It was racist.
I'm so sick of these.
Can't
So
point it out.
good use of the board. Anyway, Chinese researchers, surprise, accused of smuggling a potential agri-terrorism weapon into the U.S. at a University of Michigan lab. Kash Patel talked about all of this, and it was a dangerous biological pathogen in the United States. The University of Michigan laboratory demonstrates a serious national security threat to America's food supply. The case is a sobering reminder, this is according to Patel, that the Chinese Communist Party continues to deploy operatives and researchers to infiltrate our institutions and target our food supply, an act that could cripple our economy and endanger American lives. So what it was, really, is a fungus that was being smuggled in. It's called Fusarium grammarium.
It's basically like The Last of Us. If you've seen The Last of Us,
Yeah.
this is the thing.
It's a scientific... It classifies it as a potential agro-terrorism weapon that is a disease that causes head blight, quote unquote. And to put a finer point on that, a disease of wheat, barley, maize, rice, and is responsible for billions of dollars in economic losses worldwide each year. Basically poisons your crops.
Yeah.
Now, as the breadbasket of the world here in the United States, a major source of our not only security, our national security, and that we're not reliant on anybody else for our food, also our economy and what we export to the world. Just so happens to come at a time where we're having trade discussions about our agricultural
commodities. Wow,
to the
that's
world.
crazy. Wow.
Yeah, interesting.
I'm sure that's just a coincidence.
Total coincidence. In University of Michigan, go blue. Was more than happy to have these researchers come in and study such items.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it through governmental means. These are people that work at the University of Michigan, which I'm understanding has NIH grants, all kinds of top security clearances and things that you would do to interact with the government to know exactly how it is that you can study these kind of things. These people brought it through a suitcase.
Right. And I would also point out when the investigators looked at his phone, they found an article about biological warfare.
Interesting.
They're like, unrelated.
Unrelated.
He was like, oh, that?
Just an austere scholar.
And who the media's been like, we need these students in this country. They're the backbone of America is Chinese students trying to make The Last of Us real.
That's the backdrop to this discussion.
It brings us to the larger point. You look at everything that Secretary of State Marco Rubio is trying to do with expelling these radical elements from
you don't have a right.
Our universities, these foreigners who we come in and we have into our universities and educate them that, maybe we should require these people not be enemies of the United States of America.
What?
But also, like...
The Statue of Liberty says, give me your enemies of America for my schools.
Give me your biological warfare.
I want agri-terror is what I think that's what Lady Liberty, if you look at the book, if you were able to peel back the first page, of course you can't because, time.
Who are we to
judge? Corrosion.
That is
freedom. But if you open the first page, it says, give me your agri-terrorists. I mean, dude, it's just the most mind-boggling thing. And, like, they just so happen to stop these people.
Right. Who have we not stopped?
Who have we not stopped? This goes to Smash's point that he always says. Like, this is just happenstance that we're finding out about these things. This thing could decimate the entire Midwest of this country.
We let in millions and millions of people.
And they drop it into the University of Michigan. By the way, has anybody talked to anybody at the old Wolverine Center? Be like, hey... Why are you guys working with these guys?
It's a pretty bad school, to be honest. And the stadium's not what it's cracked up to be. It's a horrible stadium.
Taking shots at the big house.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's a big house.
That might be the most pro-Ohio thing you've ever said.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Ohio State's much better. Everyone knows this. And you don't hear about Chinese agri-terrorists at Ohio State. I'll say that. Find me one. It doesn't happen.
You wait for Ashbrook to be gone before you start taking a pro-Ohio.
He has to be near death for me to say finally.
All right, the last bit here is Karine Jean-Pierre, another missing Ashbrook deal is Karine Jean-Pierre. She's written a book. You're not going to believe this stuff. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I can't believe she wrote a book.
Was it in crayon?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, how? I was like, it's going to be a children's book. It's a coloring book.
No, rumor has it there was no drawings a part of it. And nobody actually knew that it was on the market, but it came out, and somebody sent out some excerpts where she reveals that she is leaving the Democratic Party.
Oh, my God. She's brave.
She's now becoming...
Working for Joe Biden was so bad, I'm leaving the party.
I would point out, she worked all the way to the end of his administration.
Yeah, every last day.
Every last day into 2025 to inauguration of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
She didn't have this come to Jesus moment when she was like, you know what? This White House is broken. I must resign. Nope. She worked all the way to the end, and now she's decided it was broken.
Yeah, she's decided that. And then she this is like the quote, the highlight quote that they've got. As a history maker.
Oh, wow.
And you know what she's talking about, right? Which she's like the first openly gay, right? She's like...
I just want to say real quick, I'm sick of that shit. I'm glad we're over it. Those are not real accomplishments.
No, just simply being...
If your accomplishment is an immutable trait, it's not an accomplishment.
Thank you.
You have to earn it.
I think
if it's
that's
like,
right.
I'm the first person to put up 100 points in an NBA game, that's congratulations. If you're like, I'm the first... left-handed, under 5', 10-foot golfer on a Sunday. Like, that's not an accomplishment, dude.
I feel like you just described me.
In your defense, you're a great golfer.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But so she says, as a history maker, a veteran public servant, political analyst, and independent thinker. She worked at MoveOn.org.
Right.
There's nothing
She was literally the spokesperson for the White House. This independent thinker.
Independent thinker.
Yeah.
She urges Americans to think outside of blue and red box as we consider what's next to save democracy.
God, I'm waiting with bated fucking breath.
Oh, I can't wait. Can you imagine the prescription? And like the funniest part about this is that, like, it's either one of two things. Either this... like the idea that she couldn't roll the geriatric into a second term.
Yeah.
has gotten her so pissed at Democrats because they're the ones that ultimately pulled the plug on the whole situation, that's why she's leaving the party, or that like the fact that they're not far left enough, because her whole background is like significantly to the left of this crazy left administration that we just left.
That can't be true. She's independent now.
But she's independent.
Can I give my honest take on this?
Yeah.
So this is what happened. So she is still unwilling to believe the fact that she has zero talent. That she was given that job so that they could have a bullet point that we have hired the first black woman, gay, person making history with this. When she saw the person who had the job before her got a TV show.
Yeah. She didn't get one.
Apparently, the word on the street is KJP wanted a TV show and she didn't get one.
Well, can I offer some career advice?
Well, it's very difficult to find slots on MSNBC.
Yeah.
When you have 35 people watching.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah.
I would suggest a different tact. I think it's important that the Trump era go full circle here.
Yeah.
It started when Donald Trump was elected, and it created the Never Trump movement. Former Republicans who decided
never Democrat?
Now we need a Never Biden Democrat.
She could be like
become a Republican.
She could be like the Jefferson. The Lincoln Project. She could be like the Jefferson Project.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She could do
Get that grift going. Make it come full circle.
If you're listening, KJP, that'd make you money.
You'd make a lot of
you
money.
You could trick people into it.
Want to steer clear of the interns, but other than that, like it's a clear sailing. Clear sailing.
Yeah.
KJP, listen, don't say we have never done anything for you.
Never
We
mind.
do
It could work.
Ideas coming out the wazoo over here. Another guy with a lot of ideas. We were very happy to have this dude, and it's very nice to change the top, particularly all this nonsense that we've been talking about. Let's talk a little golf. Talor Gooch. Well, it's not every day that we have a professional golfer in here, fellas, but today is a special day. He's in town for a big LIV tournament. Talor Gooch, good to see you, bud.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Fun times. Listen, you won the whole thing in 23.
It was a good year.
It seemed like it had to. I mean, you were top 10 again last year, but seems like the LIV thing's working out pretty well for you.
Yeah. It's I would say it's a good time to be decent at golf.
Yeah.
As a professional. So
got some options.
It's been a good few years, man. I played on PGA Tour for 5 years and then moved over to LIV, and pretty crazy to think about. This is season 4. First season was kind of a half season. But this is the 4th season of LIV, which is crazy. So it's been a good few years.
Time does fly, no question about it. And of course, all the discussion about reunification, all that, we won't get into it entirely here off the top. But it seems to me like, look, different format with LIV, but you're kind of cresting into a part of your career where you're playing just absolutely incredible golf by anybody's standards. A little bit more of a laid back deal. Did that suit your style a little bit better, you think, or was it just sort of like the fact that you were just playing good golf?
It's funny that's what a lot of people say, like, man, it's like more relaxed, laid back. I'm like, yeah, until you have a putt that loses you $1 million. Then let's
matter if you're wearing shorts.
I don't know if there's anything laid back about that, but yeah, I mean, like having music going, like a different type of feel of it is, it's kind of more on par with other sporting events, So yeah, it's different, but at the end of the day, it's still, you gotta make birdies and you don't want to make bogeys, and it affects your tournament, it affects your wallet, it affects what you're potentially doing the rest of the year. So yeah, it's like I tell people, it's still golf, but it's just tuned a little bit differently.
Yeah. Any difference in terms of the camaraderie on tour with the seems like from the outsider's perspective, I don't know if everybody's hanging out together, but it seems like there is a togetherness a little bit where you get at least what's flashed through the media. It seems like everybody's sort of like hanging out and having a good time.
Yeah.
Obviously trying to win, but
yeah. Well, just obviously with the team aspect, like you want to be the team that's like showing up the next week and everyone's like, oh, they won last week. So there's that. And then obviously kind of with all of the adversity that we faced, especially early on, like it kind of galvanized all of us, even if we're not on the same team or not. Obviously when you're watching majors or other events and you see LIV guy doing well, like we're cheering for our guys, right? And so But yeah, you know, golf is not easy, and you're going to have ups and downs. And so, you know, that's the other kind of part of this is, you know, when you have teammates and you have got like, you know, it was when we were in Singapore, I had a couple tough starts to the season, and we were in Singapore, and I'm hitting balls next to Brooks, and he's one of my teammates, and we're chatting, and he's like, man, like last year when you were doing this, like you looked like you had more control, like, and so like kind of having a little bit of that is, you know, it's nice to have like, you know, some other eyes that are kind of you know, giving you a little bit of input here and there. And so
with a pocket full of majors.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like I said, it's just a little bit different, you know, on tour. It can be lonely, and it's a, you know, it's a grind, and same with LIV, you know, it's a grind, but you know, having a little bit of, you know, that support system that's just a little bit different is it's something, you know, as a dude that grew up playing, I played football, baseball, basketball. I'm from Oklahoma, so I wrestled. Like doing these team sports growing up, and then kind of getting a little bit of that team aspect back into this individual sport is something that, you know, I enjoy.
Do you still watch any tour stuff? Like last weekend's jazz tournament?
Not really, but also even when I was on tour, like you know, this is my job,
yeah, right,
you know,
right.
And so when I'm not doing my job, I'm not really watching golf too much. So I play plenty of it with buddies back home, and we'll have a cocktail and hang out. So I can still get away and enjoy golf in a different aspect. But if I'm sitting there watching TV, I'm probably not watching golf.
Can you imagine that your group of buddies has Gooch in it? You're like Friday, couple of transfusions, and then Gooch is on my squad this day.
Well, I have a question. So you play obviously a ton of competitive golf. We don't. We're amateurs, right? We play for fun. I'm curious, like when you want to have a relaxing round of golf, like who would be your go-to player you'd want to play with?
Like anybody in the world?
Anybody.
Oh gosh, that's a great question. So I'll answer it like in a little different way. So I have a group of buddies that every year we do a golf trip together.
Yeah.
And there's 8 of us, and there's only a couple that didn't grow. Most of us grew up together. There's only like 2 or 3 dudes that didn't like grow up since we were 5 years old together. And so, and they're all former college athletes. We have a tennis, football, a few baseball, like, you know, golf. Like, so we have good athletes that's, you know, no longer are athletes that have taken up golf, right? And they all love golf. And there's one guy that's about a 12, 14 handicap. The rest of the guys are anywhere from a plus to a, you know, 2 handicap. So it's a
pretty good
really
squad.
good collection of guys. And we've done some different formats over the years. We've done like 6 or 7 years of this trip now. But most of the times we've split it up into 2 teams of 4. And so
just shit talk.
And so, oh my gosh, like pretty much the most talking is throughout the year of like, if I go have a good tournament, in our group text, it'll be like, well, this year gonna be a +8 instead of a +7. Like we gotta adjust, you know, the strokes now. And so most of the talk, especially in the month leading up to it, is like, you know, like one of the dudes, his name is JP. Like JP just played with Jared Wright. Like JP shot 400 today. We're having to move his handicap, guys. Like, so there's some really, really good banter that gets. So to answer your question, our group trip that we do every year,
that's your favorite
that's the one. And we play 4 rounds. We always go to Scottsdale just because we always do it like in December, January. So go get some good weather. Yeah. And so round 1 and round 3, from tee to green, you can take a mulligan at any point in time.
Okay.
It's unlimited. Once you get on the greens, you can't take any mulligans. But from tee to green, take a mulligan. But to take the mulligan, you have to take a shot first.
Yes, that's it.
And so, you know, and being in Scottsdale in desert golf, those can come in handy.
Yeah.
And so it's, exactly. And so, but also, you know, sure enough, everyone starts to kind of feel like Superman, and like I'll hit like a wedge like 25 feet. I'm like, well, I'm not making that. I got to hit one closer, and I can hit one closer. So, right. And then so it's the scores are really never that much different, even with the mulligans, because, you know, as we know, there's return starts to kind of there's that inflection point of
there's
like
also a sweet spot.
It's helpful. It's no, it's detrimental now. That's my if I'm not picking one dude, I'm picking our group, and we're gonna go do our thing. It's fun.
Diminishing returns. All right, I want to talk about a couple other things that you're involved in. Obviously, your foundation work, which I don't think a lot of guys like you who make an extra effort to create a foundation that's important to you. I don't feel like this stuff gets talked out enough about. People think if you're a professional athlete, winning this, winning that. But like this seems like a really important cause, Gooch Foundation stuff for you.
Yeah. My wife and I started it back in 2022, and it was something that we had talked about, for years. And I have an incredible wife who's such a giving heart, and we had talked about for years. Like I've had such a blessing of a life and career, and how do we give back? And so we had talked about for years, and then we kind of decided to make the jump and do it. And so it's like I said, we've been doing it for a few years now, and it's so cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. Like it's the most rewarding things that we do is to see, our extra effort, our extra time, our heart and soul being put into this, and to see the impact that it makes. It's super cool. And so I'm from Oklahoma City originally, and so our foundation focuses on, the best way to put it is helping children, helping the youth, and giving them opportunities. And that's not just through golf. While golf has been an extreme blessing to me, I don't want us to just focus on, all right, let's just get more clubs in people's hands. Like I love the game, but there's a lot more to life, than just getting people into golf. And so, yeah, it's been an incredible few years, and we have one big event every year. Pro-Am fundraiser that we do, and it's going to be the Monday after LIV Dallas, which is our next event after this week. And we always get a bunch of pros and celebrities come and play for the day, which is awesome, and we raise a bunch of money and do a lot of good with it. So yeah, it's coming up. It'll be fun.
That's cool. That's very cool. Oklahoma City. So I had to. I'm from Minnesota.
Okay.
So I couldn't help but notice last week with your OKC squad. And then I was browsing stuff to see, like, what you're up to before this interview. And I was like, oh, well, here he is, like, courtside. Absolutely shit-talking my team. And I was like, this isn't going to go well. But you know what? You guys, what a team.
Dude, it's been so being from Oklahoma City, like college is king where we're from, because there's no pro sports until 2008 when the Thunder came along. Thanks, Seattle.
Yeah.
And so like when they came, it just being a sports dude, like college basketball was my thing at the time, and then NBA, I was like, I know it, I don't love it, but I don't have a team, so once Thunder came in, it's my weeks and months and years are, I'm that fan. Like it affects me, dude. Yeah. And so we were playing the PGA Championship last year at Valhalla, and we lost that week to the Mavs in the second round of the conference last year, Western Conference. And my caddy, who's from Australia but has spent the last 20 years in the States, majority of the time he's been in Dallas. And so he's
a Mavs fan.
Yeah, kind of, not a real fan.
But a troubling matchup.
A true Australian is gonna do a lot of shit talking no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And so with his kind of fake team being the Mavs, he was giving it to me that week, and we ended up losing to the Mavs like I think Friday or Saturday night, and the next day we were teeing off. It was like a Friday or Saturday night because I'd made the cut. I wasn't playing that great, but I made the cut, and the next day we're teeing off like 9, 10 a.m. And my caddy had sent me a couple texts after the night before of like us getting closed out of the series, and I think he could tell like it hit me just enough because he didn't talk about it for like the first like 8 holes, and then like at the end of like like the 12th or 13th hole or something like that, I made a birdie, kind of like feeling good, and he goes, well, can we talk about it now? And I was like, okay, well, good on you for not bringing it up prior to this, because I would have maybe like kicked you off the bag for the day and brought a buddy in. But yeah, so it was funny, but I'm feeling way better now than I was a year ago. So,
well, so this guy's an Indiana guy.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
One piece of advice: if you do go courtside in Indianapolis for the
can't get
NBA
McAfee.
Finals,
Yeah.
McAfee's going to roast you and make everyone boo you. So don't go courtside. Like, go sit up in the 200s.
Okay.
Or at least not go eye to eye.
Yeah.
Like, make sure he doesn't know who you are.
Oh, that's funny. The thing that sucks is game 1 is Thursday, which
I know.
I tee off Friday, so it's like missing game 1, you know, at home. But that's all right. It's gonna be fun.
You're a big sports guy across the board. Couldn't help but notice that once all of your success is sort of compounded here with your golf game, you get into some other stuff. Bull riding. You own a bull riding team. Can we talk about that?
It sounds crazy, and it is crazy. I've never been on a bull, first and foremost. Like, most people like go to, they're like, did you grow up riding bulls? I'm like, guys, no. I grew up like playing like traditional sports, not like what this Western world of sports. And so I was
Imagine there's an insurance policy on this guy's body that probably would not.
Correct. Honestly, I think it might be that crazy. It's not even on there, because they're probably like, the insurance company's probably like, no one's crazy enough to actually do this. But I was actually playing. I was playing the Open over. What year was it? It wasn't at St. Andrews. One of the years I was playing the Open, and my agent called me, and my agent and I have a couple businesses together, and so he's kind of my business partner / agent. And he called me. He goes, dude, he goes, you're going to think I'm crazy. He goes, but you got to watch this show on Amazon Prime. It's called The Ride. I'm like, okay, go watch it. And it was following season 1 of, so PBR.
Yeah.
Kind of like golf, bull riding has been a traditional like individual sport, right? In 2022, ironically, same time LIV, PBR decided to create what's called a team series. And so the first 2 years, 2022, 2023, there was 8 franchises. Half the season, half of the calendar year basically was dedicated to the team series. And it was, I tell people, like, it was, like, if you watched it, you would think like, okay, if the PGA Tour had decided to start LIV and create like a team series, this is what this is. It's like the same concept. So I'm like watching this, I'm like, call my agent back. I'm like, dude, this is sick. Like, there's got to be more than 8 teams though. And so sure enough, they're like, yeah, they're going to do 2 expansion teams. And we start looking more and more into it, and all the analytics are incredible from a viewership. Like, they get as much viewership as NHL, and there's all these numbers. And I'm like, dude, I feel like this is going to become something. And then sure enough, they were like, one of the expansion teams is going to, like, we're going to have a team in Oklahoma. I'm like,
let's buy that sucker.
Me. I know I know a few people there. And so now a couple years later, we have a team, and I know a lot more about bull riding now than I did 2 years ago.
And that's
not crazy.
That's not the end of the outdoor sports deal. It's a fishing team too. Did you grow up fishing?
I mean, yeah, but not like
that.
Not for marlin and stuff. Like in Oklahoma, like I was getting like some perch and bass and stuff.
Like landlocked.
And exactly. And so that's a whole other thing. And it's just I
mean, this is what I love about this dude is it's like you're a sports guy.
Yeah.
And so like these are 2 interesting things. Obviously, there's not a saturated marketplace. You want to be a part of it. You're in.
Yeah. It's who knows what the future of it all looks like, but it's fun. I think
Do you make any of the guys that are on your team like take you out? Like guide you essentially?
I haven't yet,
you definitely
but
have
I'm going to for sure.
And I just want you to know the Ruthless Variety Program is available at any time.
Yeah, make it happen. Let's make it happen.
That would be fun as hell. That's awesome. So a couple other just sort of items. You played with Trump multiple times.
Yeah.
How's that?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, he's like, I tell people, he's just on a golf course in particular, but outside the golf course too, but he's just an entertainer, dude. Like he loves like just chopping it up. Like he loves talking stories. He loves just talking sports and anything. And so, man, he's just like a dude's dude. Yeah. You know, it was cool whenever I was, so I played with him in November or December. It was after he'd been elected, but obviously before he was back in office. And we, back when I was in junior golfer in high school, there's a tournament called the U.S. Junior Amateur, and it's widely regarded like the top junior golf tournament in the world. And it was at Trump Bedminster, and this was 2009. And somehow, some way, I had kept over the years, I had him sign a flag. He came and walked around with me and my dad in a practice round, and I just when I was like, hey, Mr. Trump, this was before it was Mr. President Trump, right. I went and got a flag, and he signed it, and I somehow kept it. And so when I went and played with him back in November, December, I brought it with me because the flag said, 2009 U.S. Junior Amateur.
No way.
Trump Bedminster, and it's his same exact signature.
Everybody loved that.
And so we go and play, and we finish the round. We have lunch after, and I went to the locker, grabbed it, and I said, Mr. President, this is crazy. I'm like, but I need another signature. And I threw it down, and he looked at me. He literally said something like, "You gotta be shitting me." It was such a cool moment. And Tiffany, his daughter Tiffany, was there, and she looked at it and she was like, "Dad, this was before everything. This was before all this stuff." Blah blah blah. And so it was one of those cool moments that. I was like, you're probably not going to remember much about me, but you're going to remember if I come and bring this flag and put it in front of you. So it was, it was cool. It was crazy.
That is, he's obviously a huge golf fan, a huge golfer in his own right. Obviously he's a lot of fun in a lot of different places in the golf course. Notwithstanding, he's taken a big interest in not only LIV, big PGA guy too, from the very beginning. And this administration has talked a lot about trying to assist in some way in a reunification effort. What do you think? What is your take?
I think nobody knows anything about what could potentially happen. And we're to the point, from my perspective, it's feels like you hear something new or different every other week. And so, but until something actually happens, I'm just going to continue focusing on birdies and let all that handle itself. It'll be interesting, though. I don't know what the...
Feels like there's a market demand for it in some way.
Yeah. I think everyone would agree, what would be best for the fans, which is the best for everything. That's what I think most of us golfers would agree with this, too, is, it's become about more than just, what's best for the fan at times. And, my caddy and I will joke at times, when we're out at a tournament, you hear these crazy dudes that are yelling obscene things, and we're always could you imagine being that guy that's saying that? But also I'm thankful because of him, I get to do this for a living. And so the attention has gone away from the fans in some aspects of this. There's been some, improvements in the production and some of the parts that I think have been tailored towards making golf more entertaining to watch. But I think what's best for the fans is that the best of the best are playing together. Right?
That's exactly right, man. And I don't know if you caught this, but on Sunday at the Memorial, Jack Nicklaus himself made a comment about this. He said that Scotty Scheffler knows that some of those other guys that were on the leaderboard with him are not in his league. Obviously, they're great guys, they're great golfers.
Right.
But his larger point about the lack of competition is the first time I've ever heard him say something like that. And I feel like maybe there's some forward momentum here to put the best golfers together.
I hope so. I think, I don't think there's really many people that would disagree with, everybody wants that at every level. The sponsors, the fans, the players, everyone wants the best of the best competing together, right? And back when I was on PGA Tour, it was a pretty normal conversation of there's too much golf currently, and it allows too many events to have too different of fields where I could always compare it to this. If I give you pizza 40 weeks a year, the other 12 weeks, you probably don't want pizza, right? It's part of what makes, the NFL king is, from February 1 till September 1, essentially, you can't have it. It's just human nature, right? And so even before LIV came around, there was talks with the PGA Tour of, we have to adjust this system, right? And so... again, I don't know where this all lands or what it looks like. I think anyone who says they do is full of crap. But I'm hopeful sooner than later that it will land in a place that the best of the best are competing way more often together than not. And right now, it's just, not the case. There's not the best of the best competing. And, the other discussion is like the majors, it's they've had the chance to be the place where the best of the best, are competing together all the time. And, you got to hope that they're going to continue to figure out ways, beyond, the
grandfathered exemptions,
the last 10 years of what it's looked like. Like, you got to think that they're going to want to continue to, figure out how do we continue to figure out who the best of the best in the world are so that we can get all of them, together for our events. Because, the majors are not the PGA Tour, technically. And so they have an opportunity and to kind of improve their product, honestly. Like, they can be that standalone until all this gets figured out. They can be the ones to be like, hey, we're going to figure out how to have all these together, which if I'm, the PGA of America or the USGA or Augusta, like, I'm sitting there thinking like, dude, this is an opportunity to almost like start to bind the powers that be and the fans and everyone back together, and we can be at the forefront of that. And a few of them have started to slowly, and so hopefully
encouraging.
And so hopefully things are on the right path, and we'll look back on this in 5-10 years and kind of chuckle about a little bit of this like chaos in the middle of it.
From a fan perspective, I definitely hope that is the case. Let me ask you one last aspect to that. I mean, you're a professional athlete. Focus on your craft. Try to do the best you can, particularly in an individual sport like the one that you're involved in. All of a sudden, it becomes super political internationally. I imagine that is sort of a disorienting process where all of a sudden you're like personally being attacked, that you're in a political discussion that you never asked for, that all of that and how that encompasses your golf group. But then you turn around and go out and win the whole thing in 23 at the height of all of that. Are you able to just sort of compartmentalize it, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're crazy, dude. Like, we play a crazy sport to begin with. So, we talk about a lot, like, it's our job, and it's since I was 9 years old, like, this is what I've wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you don't get, to playing on the PGA Tour or LIV, like, you don't get to become one of the best players, in the world without being ultra competitive, right? And so, like, you have to be able to, when it's game time, when you're between the ropes, like, it's nothing else matters except making birdies. Like, it's so cool seeing like guys like Phil Mickelson and Sergio and some of these guys who, I grew up watching that are still competing. Like, dude, to see like their dedication to their craft and like their like competitiveness, like, dude, when like I've been, fortunate to play some practice rounds and some stuff with Phil, and like, dude, he cares. So like, he wants to beat your ass. And it is like, it's so
and
cool.
take your wallet.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's so cool because like, this dude who is one of the greatest ever and has made more money in majors, like, he could ride off to the sunset and like, he's good, right? And to see like how much he still cares, it's like one of the coolest things. And my caddy and I talk about all the time, even when he hasn't played great for the last couple of years, and he just grinds and he cares. And so it's just cool. But again, it goes to show like to get, to this level of any type of, sport, like the competitiveness that it takes, like, dude, you gotta be crazy.
That's awesome. I got the last question I've got for you. We generally go through a list, like 3 questions, so we ask everybody. I feel like the last one has to go first here. Our view is that every successful person, regardless of your line of work, finds themselves in one of 2 categories: a thrill of victory or an agony of defeat person. And it's not that anybody enjoys getting beat or anybody doesn't like winning. It's like what motivates you, right?
Yeah.
What gets you back to the range? What does all that? And like the prototypical agony of defeat person is Michael Jordan. Like that is, and Tiger to some extent. But it's like he literally had to invent new slights in order to get him out of the bed in the morning. And Phil, for us, has always been the thrill of victory guy, where it's like staring 285 over water and he's pulling an iron like, I think I hit that shot, but I can do this again. Right? It's not the motivation that's negative motivation. He's like, no, I can do that. That's the thrill of victory side. Like in that spectrum, where do you find yourself?
Oh, I hate losing, dude.
Yeah.
I hate losing. Winning is cool.
Yeah.
But God, dude, like I put it like, and I kind of wish at times I had a little bit more of that other side because like I talk about with my coach, like and it started in college and when we were like qualifying, like I'm trying to qualify for my team when we had a bunch of studs like Morgan Hoffman and Kevin Tway and Peter Uline, like all these, studs. And like, I just felt like I was trying to get on the team and like survive. I was in like survival mode. Right. And so I got really good early in my golf career at like surviving, and I've had to learn how to thrive. So like in a different way, I think there's also there's two types. There's guys that are good at surviving, and then there's guys that are good at thriving. Yeah. And so that's kind of a similar metaphor of like, like the thrill of winning versus the agony of defeat. It's like same thing. It's like I'll do whatever it takes to not lose. Like, and I love winning, but
then to go to that next level.
I hate losing. Like losing is the worst. And so yeah, I'm definitely the agony of defeat
guy. All right, being from Oklahoma, you can pick your last meal on earth. What would it be?
Now, are we talking like restaurants or are we talking like...
Anything in the world. It can be a restaurant. It could be something your mom makes. I mean, it could be absolutely anything.
All right, we're going to go with the restaurant. Oh, my gosh.
Is it tough?
This is tough. It's tough. We've been fortunate. We eat some good food. So, so one of the coolest meals I've had in a while that just goes to my mind is, so there's a Cipriani up in New York City, right near Central Park, and it's like your quintessential like old school, like you felt like Al Capone was in the corner, right? Like it's a nice. It's not like a hole in the wall. It's Cipriani, so it's nice, but. Dude, like, and I was with a couple buddies. One of my buddies, he works on Wall Street. He was former golfer. Another buddy that I met him at the Pro-Am in Palm Springs. I played with him, amateur. He's a forever banker, Wall Street guy, and it was funny because like I had always wanted to go to this place, and so I had set up the reservation. And we show up, and my old school buddy, he's like 65 years old. We show up, and I had made the reservation for the wrong day. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so, but my buddy, he's like, hey, don't worry about it. And he like pulls the GM. He's like, hey, can we get a table? I'm like, hold on a second.
Can this be done?
He goes, dude, for 30 years, I came here 3 or 4 days a week. Like this is, and I'm like, so you're the Al Capone. You're the OG. I was like, I thought I was setting up something nice, and you used to live here basically. So it's one of those, yeah.
Big steak?
We had some like we split up everything, but it was like, dude, like pasta, like it's Italian, right? It's just it was like a quintessential Italian meal. We had like some different pastas. We had like some different types of steak. I mean, we had everything. It was one of those. There was 4 or 5 of us.
So your last meal is going to be a real fit. Like you got 5-6 courses on.
Oh yeah, and of course I'm a wine guy. And place like that, you got to start with a martini, and so like if you're going to do it, you got to touch every level of it, right?
I can appreciate that. It's a culinary experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's about more than just the food. It's like, all right, how's this experience, right?
All right, your last one. If you, with the benefit of hindsight, now that you are where you are in your career, well established, obviously very successful, you look back over life. You're involved in this foundation, what you're doing to help kids. If you had it all over to do again, with the benefit of hindsight, and could do something else, like what would it be? Would it be like?
Yeah. So knowing how the world now works, I've always said that like the finance world fascinates me.
Yeah. Well, now you have more interaction with the finance world.
Yeah. This kid from Midwest City, Oklahoma, didn't know about this whole world, and so yeah, the finance world like is super fascinating. It's like the competitiveness in me. It's like chess, like the way that you can utilize capital and move it and all this stuff, and like it's just. I don't know, that the finance world is very fascinating to me, but also the political world is too. Yeah. I don't say I would want to go into politics in a different world, but it
feels like every time you open your mouth, somebody's jumping down your throat anyway, right?
Well, like you said, somehow golf has like become politics in the last couple of years. Right. So I've almost gotten a crash course the last few years. But yeah, it's like finance and politics are super fascinating, and I'm by no means smart enough to go do either of those.
No, you never know.
But it was funny. I was in, we had a tournament in Saudi last December, and we had a dinner, and we show up to this dinner, and there was a few of us golfers, and basically they were like, hey, it was after the round finished, like, y'all just, I'm like, I'm going to work out after. I was like dressed like this. I'm like, can I just show up, like, or do I need to get dressed up, you know? And they're like, no, you're good. Just show up. And I see like 50 dudes in like full business suits. And I'm like
this doesn't feel
and
like
it was,
I'm
and it was like the brass of like JP Morgan and like Goldman, like all, I'm like,
somebody could have warned me about
thanks for the heads up, everybody. Like, and what was funny is, so we sit down, at like all arranged seating. We sit down, I sit next to this dude who was from like somewhere around London. He had one of those accents. And so we sit down and he goes, hey, just so you know, he goes, you're probably a golfer, right? And I'm like, shocker.
Give me away.
Shocker. And he goes, just so you know, I don't want to offend you. Like, I don't know anything about golf. And I'm like, great, we'll talk about anything else. And about 30 seconds later, like, because we had like nameplates, and like he looked, are you that bull riding guy? And I'm like, come on. I'm like, dude, I've been recognized as a golfer my whole life, and I just got recognized as the bull riding guy. But like a few days prior, Wall Street Journal had done like a full spread on like, you know, it was like something about like billionaires betting on bull riding or something like that. Not a billionaire, but
they tossed you in.
But they would talk about me in this, like, you know, basically how guys like Mark Lazary and these different guys from different areas of life and business are now getting involved in bull riding, right? And so we're talking about it. And at the time, long story short, TKO, which is a new created entity that WWE, is now a part of. And so that had just come out. And so I'm saying to this, you know, British guy, I was like, hey, I'm just a golfer, apparently a bull riding guy too, but like, explain to me why they did this. Like, why did Endeavor do this and Silver Lake Cap and all this stuff?
I could give you a real education.
I was like, you're the banker. Like, talk to me about this. He goes, you know, that's what's crazy about this. He goes, sometimes we don't even understand what's going on. So, apparently you also don't have to be that smart to maybe be in that world too. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Talor Gooch, thank you so much for stopping by. Good luck, by the way.
Yeah, thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
Going to be a good
y'all
tournament to watch.
This week?
We're going to come out. We're going to say hello, and hopefully y'all put on a show.
All right. I'm excited.
Man, he's a whale of a guy.
He really is.
Like, he's so much fun. I would love to play golf with him if we ever got the chance one day. You know, I was really hoping he'd ask for some scouting report on RTJ that they're playing this weekend.
I thought he was going to. He didn't.
He didn't.
I mean, I don't feel like he thought we were qualified to get it.
Look, I birdied 9 once.
It's a fair point.
It's literally the only birdie I've gotten that entire golf course. And I took a picture of it.
But he was the kind of guy that you get to the end of, you know, what is an expanded interview, and you just got there.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to the point where he understood us and we understood him. Like, he's going to come back. When he comes back, we're going to get like a cocktail rolling, and we're going to get to
well,
some
after
good
his
stuff.
whole discussion of how he plays golf with his boys.
Yeah.
Where he's like, you can take a shot to get an extra shot.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
I'm
he's one of us. This guy is a very, very good guy. Root for him. He is here in Northern Virginia playing in the LIV tournament this weekend. If Typhoid Mary didn't give him some communicable disease,
come on, don't put that on him.
Hopefully he'll finish.
Don't put that on
sick,
him,
dude. Watch him get sick because of Duncan. That'd be tough.
I'm just saying. Keep an eye on
I am not the vector.
Keep an eye on
Okay, Fauci.
So good. Listen, so nice to have you here with us this week. A lot of important topics, a lot of important parts of our show. Like and subscribe to the YouTube. That's how all of your friends can see what it is that we're doing. Check out some merch items. We got some fun stuff while you're there. And with that, Smug, I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much, Talor Gooch. Thank you so much, Senator Joni Ernst. And thank you so much to our listeners. Like Holmes said, if you have not yet, go to the YouTube. Hit that subscribe. It's more fun in video. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line on the libs. We'll see you Tuesday. Stay ruthless.